We are back after the long weekend, the BC Day long weekend here on the West Coast. Before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that this episode is brought to you by Kenzen Sports Karate. If you want top-notch traditional or sports karate training, go to Kenzen Sports Karate in Victoria, British Columbia. They do anything from grassroots, from recreational. They do kids programs. They have a summer camp going on right now. They also do elite performance. They also do sports karate specifically. So if you want to go to competition, want to work towards getting to the Olympics, check out Kenzen Sports Karate at kenzensportskarate.ca. They'll help you out in all your martial arts needs.
Orion nav transition is complete.
Hello, my name is Kalan Anglos, and I am a certified strength and conditioning specialist. Sounds pretty good, huh?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
And this is the KFit Show.
5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
We are back in studio for the KFit Show after the long weekend. And let me tell you, the long weekend sure took a toll on me. 3-day long weekend for the BC Day. It was a tough one for me. I'm not sure what happened. The 3 days was great. I took some time off. I didn't work so much. I actually had family come to town, spent some time in Victoria, that kind of thing. But taking those 3 days off, it messed up my week. It messed up my Tuesday, my start of the week. Monday night when I was going to bed after the long weekend, I thought, you know what? I didn't get any work done this weekend, and that's not usual for me. And I know, sometimes I'm hard on myself. People are often hard on themselves. I know it's not necessarily healthy, but I got a terrible sleep Monday night. I slept for maybe 3-4 hours, woke up early, like 4 o'clock in the morning, and started working in the dark, just getting things done just because I was, mad at myself mostly. So that was kind of tough. That kind of sucked. But Tuesday, the start of the week, I felt great. I felt fine. I was going on running 3-4 hours sleep, and I felt fine all day. One coffee, I was good to go. Come Wednesday, which is today, it's a little sleepy today. It caught up to me. That long weekend, which wasn't crazy. I was in bed early. I got good night's sleeps. It just screwed up my week. So BC Day long weekend. It was great. It was fun. But back to the grind. Moral of the story: get your sleep. Don't worry so much about working hard all the time. I understand, and especially with athletes or people who are trying to accomplish something, you want to be working all the time. Well, it's tough. You do need your rest, and you need to be able to shut off, I think, too, right? That's important, and that obviously something I struggle with, too, is shutting off, but it is important. Anyways, busy week I got coming up this week, training all kinds of people, from boxing athletes, jiu-jitsu athletes, karate athletes. We got some testing going on this weekend. Just found out that I got my position back at the University of Victoria, so I'll be teaching again in the physiology lab at the University of Victoria in September. I'll also be teaching exercise prescription, I found out this week as well, so that's exciting. So I'll keep you guys posted on all that, but I got my teaching positions back at the university, so that's good because, like I said, I want to teach. I want to help you guys learn, so this is all kind of part of it. Welcome back to the KFit Show. Thanks for tuning in over the past few weeks, guys. I do appreciate it. It's really humbling and awesome when I go somewhere or I'm talking to somebody and they say, hey, I caught your podcast, or I found your podcast. I didn't know you had a podcast. Totally cool. Love it. And that's what I do this for. I hope you guys listen. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any suggestions, any questions, send them my way. Kalan Anglos at all the social media stuff. KalanAnglos@gmail.com. There is a Ask KFit kind of segment now in this podcast, which we do at the end. So if you have any questions, fitness related, physiology related, anatomy related, whatever it is, send them my way and I will answer your questions. I want to clear things up properly for you guys. All right, that's enough talking about that. Today we're going to talk about the hormonal responses to training, and more so to strength training, because that's kind of where the greatest benefits are found, in strength training opposed to aerobic training. So when we talk hormonal changes, we're talking the hormones that are released from the endocrine system. We're really talking the endocrine system, your glands that secrete hormones that have certain effects on your body. Now, before we get into it, we need to understand a couple of those effects. There's something called an anabolic effect and a catabolic effect, okay? So an anabolic effect is a building up process. So building up those proteins. When we build up those proteins, that's an anabolic process, building up, putting together. Catabolic is just the opposite. It's the breakdown of whatever, muscle, proteins, or carbohydrates, whatever. The breakdown of a cell is catabolic, and the building up is anabolic. So that's what we need to remember. Now, just because catabolic is breaking something down, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? We need to remember that we train and we work out so hard because we want that catabolic effect. We want that breakdown to happen so that in the recovery we can have a greater anabolic effect, and we can actually produce and synthesize more protein or synthesize more cells to get stronger, to get faster, whatever it is that we're trying to do, however we're training. So keep that in mind. Breakdown is not necessarily a bad thing, but it is part of the processes that happen in the endocrine system. So today what I want to talk about is just a few of the main anabolic, and I'll touch real briefly on the catabolic hormones that happen. But if we're talking anabolic hormones that are released from strength training or any training really, we're mostly looking at testosterone, growth hormone, and something that's called insulin-like growth hormone, or IGF-1, or there's IGF-2 too, but IGF-1 is the primary anabolic hormone that is released from the endocrine system. So those are the three: testosterone, growth hormone, and insulin-like growth factor. So we're going to break those down a little bit. So let's talk about the one that everybody is most familiar with, the anabolic hormone, testosterone, right? Testosterone is something that, we're not going to get too much into the steroids and taking exogenous testosterone or exogenous growth hormone, but I do want to break it down a little bit what they are. So testosterone, obviously, it circulates in your blood, and it's one of the things that really helps facilitate protein synthesis. So it does help facilitate that building up, that anabolic effect, but it's not necessarily the most prevalent or the most important, and that's what some people get a little bit confused about. What it mostly does is that when we do secrete testosterone, it increases the force production of the muscles. So the muscles can just work at a greater force than they were before with less testosterone, because it kind of helps with that process. Also, there has been research to show that it will help increase muscle mass as well, but again, not as much as what some people think, and not as much as other hormones that we're going to talk about. So testosterone gets released both in aerobic and in anaerobic situations. In aerobic, it does, when you go for cardio, when you're running, whatever, working aerobically, you do get testosterone increases in your system, but it doesn't actually increase the size of the muscle. So although testosterone plays a role in increasing muscle, in aerobic performance, it doesn't so much, and that's mostly because of the oxidative stress that is related to aerobic exercise. A lot of oxidation happens when we're doing cardio. We're breaking down those fats. It's a long process, so it's a lot of stress on the body. And, the testosterone helps, but it actually doesn't help build up the muscle as much because of that oxidative stress. So that's when we're working aerobically. We do produce that testosterone. Both males and females too, by the way, produce testosterone. Males more so than females. I think that's pretty straightforward. But males produce more testosterone. That's why physiologically men are bigger. That's one of the reasons. We're bigger, we're stronger. I'm not being a womanizer here or anything. It's physiological. We produce more testosterone, usually on a case-to-case basis, but there is obviously, women out there who can increase their testosterone production by training properly. And that is usually by training strength, right? When we talk about the main hormonal responses, it's usually in strength training, and this is especially true in testosterone. We do increase our testosterone when we are training strength, when we are training anaerobically. So even if it's high-intensity interval training, that testosterone is increasing in our system. And this is when it really more so facilitates that growth of the actual muscle, the muscle mass coming in, because it really helps with the process, the anabolic process of protein synthesis, building up the proteins. That's what happens when your muscles get bigger. So in the anaerobic state, because there's not so much oxidative stress of breaking everything down, you're going to get a greater anabolic effect, a greater building up effect when we're working strength. And this is especially true for all of these actually, but I'll touch on it now. This is especially true when we're looking at like compound lifts, heavy compound strength lifts like your squats, like your deadlifts, like your overhead presses, those type of things. Those have been shown to increase your testosterone and your other anabolic hormones more so than any other type of training. So think about that. We know from previous episodes that strength training, usually you're lifting heavy, doing about 3 to 5, maybe 6 reps of each exercise. So by doing that kind of stuff, lifting heavy, you're going to get more testosterone in your system. You're going to help with the protein synthesis and with the anabolic effects. Now, it's important with testosterone. Testosterone has a receptor that it attaches to. This receptor is called androgen, okay? Androgen receptors. This is what testosterone binds to. So, even though the testosterone is in your system, it's only as good as the amount of androgen receptors that are also in your system. Now, when your testosterone goes up, your androgen receptors also go up, but not as much as you might think, or not very much. We have to be doing the right things in order to get the receptors to also go up to match the large increase or larger increase in testosterone. So again, doing those squats, doing those compound deadlifts, doing any of those compound lifts is going to also increase the androgen receptors. So that's why doing these strength training is better to help the testosterone and the receptors. They both go up. This is going to help put on muscle mass. This is going to help get you stronger, create more force, and just perform better, okay? So think about that. If you're thinking about testosterone, if you're that type of athlete, you should be working in those conditions, okay? That's testosterone. That's one of the most well-known anabolic hormones. Another one that I wanted to kind of get in that a lot of people have heard of as well, and unfortunately a lot of people have heard of this one because of its use in athletic situations or athletes, kind of breaking the rules, I guess. We're talking about growth hormone, okay? Growth hormone, it's one of the most interesting endocrine hormones because of it's got many different processes that it does. It's secreted by the pituitary gland, and this growth hormone, some people call it somatotropin. There we go. That's also growth hormone. So think about that. The thing with growth hormone, again, it doesn't actually stimulate the protein synthesis as much as insulin-like growth factor, which we're going to talk in a sec, but it does enhance the amino acid uptake. What the hell is that? Amino acid uptake is just taking those amino acids to build those proteins. Okay, you need those amino acids to help build up the proteins. Well, growth hormone enhances the uptake of those amino acids into the cells. So again, it kind of plays a helper role in building up the amino acids, getting your muscles stronger. But it does also, more so even than testosterone, result in hypertrophy. Growth hormone is going to give you stronger muscles. It's going to give you more dense bones. It's really going to just make you bigger and make you stronger. That's why people use it as a supplement or as a performance enhancer, really, because it does make you bigger. It does make you stronger. It also increases the utilization of fatty acids as well. So this is also important for, people, bodybuilders, I'm just going to say it, who want to have that lean cut look, but also want to be big and strong. Because growth hormone increases your fatty acid use, that means that you're going to have less chance of storing fat, and you're going to have a greater muscle mass, a greater hypertrophy, and a greater amino acid uptake, meaning that you're going to be bigger, you're going to be stronger. Another great thing about growth hormone that a lot of people don't think about, but it also increases your collagen synthesis. Now, we know from a very early previous episode of the KFit show that collagen is what makes up your tendons and ligaments. So this is super important for injury prevention, or anybody who does a lot of plyometric work, or really just anybody who wants stronger tendons and ligaments, which for the most part, most people would. So it increases the collagen synthesis. When growth hormone is there, the collagen synthesis also happens. So this is important. Now, Again, growth hormone is taken exogenously as a performance enhancer, but there is things that we can do. We don't need to take it as a performance enhancer. Obviously, I don't suggest that. We're not saying that on the KFit show, but I do think there are things, and there are things you can do that will help with the growth hormone, and it's really right along the same things. All of these things are going to have the same theme. Do your compound lifts, lift strength in the strength numbers, and your growth hormone is going to increase. Also, just know that your growth hormone happens, or it comes at certain times in your life in droves, in greater quantities. So when somebody's going through puberty, they usually have a lot of growth hormone because now your body is really building up your muscles, really building up your bones, really building up your tendons and ligaments to make it stronger. So that's when your growth hormone is the most. But you can keep that going, obviously, in adulthood and as you're training as an adult athlete by doing those things. So think about growth hormone. Think about it as enhancing amino acid uptake and as well as helping with the protein synthesis. But the number one anabolic hormone that is going to give you the most effect on stronger muscles, bigger protein synthesis, is insulin-like growth factor. Okay, insulin-like growth factor 1. Oh, actually, sorry, you know what? Before we get into insulin-like growth factor 1, I'm going back. Rewind. We're going back to growth hormone here. I just want to talk a little bit about something I forgot. I should have looked at my notes here. But growth hormone, before we get there, there's a few different things that it does. So it decreases the glucose utilization. So I said it increases the fatty acid utilization. It decreases the glucose utilization. So again, this is here. It decreases your glycogen synthesis. We already talked about increasing the amino acid transport, increasing protein synthesis, fatty acids, and lipolysis. So that's that fat breakdown. Growth hormone is going to increase that, increase collagen. We've already kind of talked about all this, I guess. So yeah, and it just increases your immune cell function as well. So growth hormone is one of the most important, but it's not as important for muscle growth as insulin-like growth factor. And that's rounding about what I was trying to get to. So the liver secretes insulin-like growth factors. There's insulin-like growth factors 1, 2, 3, whatever. The liver secretes these, and these are also in the blood, and they also go to binding proteins, so they also have to bind, and they have different uses in the body, but the main use of insulin-like growth factor is it has a very prolific role in protein anabolism, the protein anabolic effects of building up your muscles, making you stronger. Insulin-like growth factor is what's gonna do this in the most effect. Now, another thing though is insulin-like growth factor is secreted from the liver, but it is stimulated by growth hormone. Okay, so growth hormone being stimulated by the anterior pituitary gland stimulates the production of insulin-like growth factor in the liver. Lots coming at you here today, so I hope you guys are following along. But insulin-like growth factor, we don't need to know too much about it. We just need to know that it plays the biggest effect in building up those muscles, and people often don't think about that enough. They think a lot about testosterone, they think a lot about growth hormone, but not so much about insulin-like growth factor. So when we stress our body using strength training, using those compound lifts, the not just acute response, but also the long-term response, that's coming from the insulin-like growth factor. It can take, 8 to 48 hours really for the insulin-like growth factor to do its thing and build up those muscles. So it's the most important because it's got the longest term effect on the body. So, because of that, you should be training in those strength things. Like I said, I'm not going to beat that to death too much, but yeah, think about insulin-like growth factor 1. Think about how it increases your muscles. Think about all those anabolic steroids. Anabolic hormones. Like I said, we're not promoting that here on the KFit show. Anabolic hormones. Those are the main ones that are used in the body. That's usually what we see. Let's talk real quick about some catabolic hormones. We just want to break this down. We got cortisol. Cortisol is also released when we do strength training. This is more of a catabolic effect. It breaks down, is the primary signal hormone for carbohydrate use. So when you have cortisol in your body wants to use and break down that carbohydrates as well as store the glycogen, so store those carbohydrates. Cortisol has that catabolic effect. In the muscle, if we're talking about muscle itself, the anabolic effects of testosterone and insulin-like growth factor is countered by cortisol's catabolic effects. Okay, so it's kind of like a pendulum swing here. Your anabolic is trying to build it up, but your catabolic is taking it down. And again, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. We talked about that before, but know that these both are happening at the same time. And when we resistance train, when we do strength training, your cortisol responds to that type of exercise, mostly in anaerobic situations. We're not looking so much at aerobic. We're talking more so about anaerobic when cortisol. We know cortisol is known as the stress hormone, and the ratio of testosterone to cortisol. So however much testosterone, however much cortisol you have, that's kind of how you know whether you're going to be building up or breaking down. Okay, so we can kind of look at your testosterone, look at your cortisol, whichever the ratio is, kind of whichever you have more of, that's going to determine if you're building up or breaking down. And this is really important for people who are trying to get stronger and faster. If you're, we can do things absolutely to measure your cortisol. Not everybody obviously can do that, but if you are in a more cortisol state, you're going to have more of that catabolic effect, which is going to affect your training and thinking maybe I shouldn't train strength this day. So again, this is why the recovery process is so important. So cortisol, stress hormone, also gets released during exercise. One last thing I want to talk about here is what's called catecholamines. Now, most people look at these as epinephrine and norepinephrine, and dopamine actually is also a catecholamine, but mostly most people look at epinephrine or adrenaline. And what these things do, they are also released in strength training from the endocrine system, and they can help increase the force production. When we look at epinephrine, it's adrenaline. It gets used when we are in a sympathetic state, so when we are in that stress state. So it's going to help increase your force. It's going to help increase your muscle contraction. It increases your blood pressure, your energy available, blood flow, everything. So these are good things that happen when we are strength training and when we are using our endocrine system. Okay? That about wraps that up. Look at those as anabolic, catabolic hormones. Anabolic, building up. We're looking at your testosterone, growth hormone, insulin-like growth factor. Those happen mostly in strength training, doing those compound lifts, living in that 3 to 5 rep range, maybe 5 sets. That's quite a bit. Those are counteracted by your catabolic effects, your cortisol, and that kind of thing, and just things that help that. Things that are going to increase, like I said, large muscle groups are going to increase your anabolic effects. Heavy resistance, short rest intervals, so high-intensity interval training, that's also going to help. And there you go. That's kind of what you need to know about the endocrine system, all in a nutshell, all packed into a tight little 20 minutes. If you have any questions on any of that, guys, let me know. Let's dive into a little bit of Sensei Says. Sensei says, be consistent. Right now, it's the summer months, and people often tail off in their training, tail off in their periodization because it's summer. You want to be outside, you want to be at the beach, whatever. But you have to stay consistent with your training. You have to stay on schedule and really work at it and follow it, fall in love with the process. That's what I always say, right? To stay consistent, keep going to the gym, keep to your program, because if you're not, your opponent or the person you're trying to catch or whatever is going to pass you, and you're just not going to see those gains. You're not going to see that performance increases that you'd want. And it's really easy in the summer months, like I said. This is also where a coach or a trainer can help you not only put together a training plan, but also keep you motivated and keep you accountable. We talked about accountability before here on the KFit show. Keep you accountable so that you know you need to be here, to be training. I see it all the time. Athletes train, and then they take the summer months off, or they take it easy throughout the summer months, and then in September, they're a step behind the people who already trained throughout the summer. You have to stay consistent with your training if you want to see results. That's the only way you're going to see the true results. It's the best way to see results. It's the quickest way you're going to see results. So you have to stay consistent as we go through, and you really have to fall in love with the process. I think that's the most important thing. Fall in love with the process of training and your training program, and you will stay consistent, and the results will come. Okay, that's just the way it is. But if there's one thing I can say here in this Sensei Says segment, is just stay consistent. Keep going to the gym. You know, you're going to have your shitty days and your good days, but know that, you know, any workout for the most part is better than no workout. Now, I'm not saying, again, we know recovery is important, but there is active recovery where you can still go to the gym, still stay consistent, and this should all be already in your training plan. So just follow along the training plan, follow an evidence-based approach, and you will get the greatest improvements, and you'll be able to stay consistent. All right, last segment here of the show is the Ask KFit episode, or KFit knows, or Ask, I don't know. I haven't figured out quite a name for it, but I'm calling it Ask KFit right now because we got the hashtag Ask KFit. If you guys have any questions, anything to do with training, related, recovery, nutrition, performance, whatever, send them my way. Use the Ask KFit hashtag, and I'll find them and I will answer them. This one comes to you from Anthony. Anthony wanted to know, what is the difference between a artery, a vein, and I'm adding this on, but a nerve. So you want to know artery, vein, and nerve. What is the difference? What do they do? Well, real simple. We're talking, you know, anatomy. We're talking function of the body here. But a artery takes the blood away from the heart. So we think about artery, away from the heart. So it takes the blood away from the heart. Usually it's deoxygenated blood, so you don't have oxygen taking it away from the heart. And then vein takes it back to the heart. Takes it back to the heart. So from artery, takes it out from the heart to the whole entire system, and then brings it back to using veins. So artery away from the heart, veins back to the heart. That's the difference between artery and veins. A nerve is just what stimulates your muscle to contract. So you have nerves from your central nervous system. So different systems, really, we're talking here. Arteries and veins are your circulatory system, the blood circulation, the oxygen circulation. The nerves is your central nervous system, and the nerves go from your spinal cord down to whatever muscles that they innervate. Those are called motor units, is a motor nerve, and all the muscles it innervates. But the nerve is what makes the muscle contract. You know, it sends those action potential signals down the nerve. Not going to get too crazy away, but there's a process that happens just before the muscle, and it forces the muscle to contract. Well, that nerve from the central nervous system, from the spine, that's what's getting sent to the muscle. That's what tells the muscle to contract and do its work. So there it is. Artery and veins are your circulatory system. Arteries away from the heart, vein back to the heart, and a nerve helps the muscle contract. Okay, so those are the three differences there. Thanks, Anthony, for your question. You guys keep them coming. All right, well, there it is. That's this episode of the KFit Show, banged out here in a smooth 30 minutes or less. That's what I want to do. I want to get it to you guys as quick as possible, get as much information as I can into a tight 30 minutes, and I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you guys tuning in and continuing to follow along. Follow me at KFit Conditioning by Kalan Anglos on Facebook. Find me there, like it, follow it. I cycle everything through there. And yeah, we'll keep going. These come out on Wednesdays. I try to get them out for you guys Wednesday morning. This one's going to be a little bit later. I apologize, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for tuning in. This is the KFit Show. We'll talk to you guys next week. That's it. Signing off. Thanks. Bye.